This is the story of Jordan and James Sullivan, the twins who were denied boarding, until their father, a man you've never heard of but who controls everything, made a single phone call. But what they thought was power was a lie, and the karma that came next was harder and more real than any of them could have ever imagined. Stay with me. Newark Liberty International Airport, Terminal C. It was a cathedral of human hurry, a glass and steel monument to the idea that everyone had somewhere more important to be. The air, a sanitized, recycled blend, carried the competing aromas of Cinnabon, stale coffee, and the faint, kerosene-sharp tang of jet fuel. Passengers, a river of anxiety and purpose, flowed around the circular pods of power-charging stations, their roller bags clicking a rhythmic, frantic percussion on the polished terrazzo floors. At gate C-124, the tension was a little thicker. This was the domain of Ascent Airlines Flight 8080, non-stop to Austin, Texas. It was a premium route, frequented by tech bros in Patagonia vests, aspiring musicians, and today, Jordan and James Sullivan. The twins were 18, identical to the point of being a party trick, but distinct in their carriage. Jordan, the elder by 7 minutes, was the anchor. He wore a simple, black Fear of God hoodie and carried a worn, leather-bound journal. He was the planner, the pragmatist, the one who had triple-checked their internship paperwork for the prestigious Quantum Leap AI summer program. James was the fire. He was dressed louder, off-white sneakers that looked like they'd been highlighted in neon green, and a confidence that bordered on a strut. He was the salesman, the charmer, the one who believed their father's name was a skeleton key for the world's locks. They were excited. Austin was a new city, a new life, the first real step out from under the colossal shadow of their father. They stood in the Priority 1 boarding line, their digital passes gleaming on their new iPhones. And then there was Sandra Prescott. Sandra was the lead gate agent for Ascent Airlines. To her, Gate C-124 wasn't a gateway. It was a fortress, and she was its chief defender. Sandra was a woman in her late 50s, her hair pulled back in a bun so tight it seemed to stretch the patience from her face. She'd worked this gate for 20 years, and in those 20 years, the world had become louder, ruder, and more digital. 3 things she despised. She missed the days of paper tickets, of clear-cut rules, of passengers who knew their place. She looked up from her console and saw the Sullivan twins. She saw the expensive, loud clothes. She saw the easy confidence. She saw the matching, top-of-the-line carry-on bags. And in the complex, bitter calculus of her unconscious bias, she didn't see 2 promising interns. She saw a problem. "Next!" she barked, her voice a gravelly monotone. Jordan stepped forward, smiling. "Hi, how are you?" "2 for Austin." He held out his phone. Sandra ignored his greeting. She scanned the QR code. Beep. The screen flashed red. "Denied." Jordan's smile faltered. "Sorry? There must be a mistake. We're confirmed. Seats 12A and 12B. The system says C agent," Sandra said, tapping her screen with a long, unmanicured fingernail. "Which is me. So I'm seeing you. And I'm telling you, there's a problem." James, ever impatient, stepped up beside his brother. "What kind of problem?" "We checked in this morning." Sandra's eyes flicked to James, then back to the screen. She was typing, her movements slow and deliberate. "It says, verification pending." She looked up, her eyes flat. "I'm going to need to see your identification, and the credit card used to purchase the tickets." Jordan, the planner, was ready. He produced his driver's license. James produced his. "Our father's assistant booked the tickets," Jordan explained calmly. "On the company card, We have the confirmation email." "I don't need to see an email," Sandra snapped. "I need to see the physical card. It's policy to prevent fraud." The word fraud hung in the air, thick and sudden. "Fraud?" James repeated, his voice rising half an octave. "Who do you think we are?" "I don't know who you are," Sandra said, her voice dripping with faux patience. "That's the point. Digital boarding passes." She made a tisk sound. "They can be forged, cloned. Anybody can mock up a screen. I have to protect the airline." "We're on the manifest," Jordan insisted, pulling up the Ascent Airlines app. "See? Jordan and James Sullivan. It's all right here." "I see what you're showing me," Sandra said, not glancing at his phone. "What I'm seeing on my terminal is a security flag. Now, you can either step aside while I validate this, or I can have you removed from the gate area." The passengers behind them were starting to grumble. A man in a cheap suit muttered, "Just show her the damn card, kids." "We just told you we don't have the card," James said, his anger now a visible flush on his neck. "It's a corporate account." "That's a very convenient story," Sandra said. She hit a button on her keyboard. "I'm afraid I'm going to have to deny you boarding. The flight is overbooked anyway, and your tickets have been flagged." "Overbooked?" Jordan was stunned. "We have assigned seats. You're denying us because why? Because we're two young black men in hoodies. Is that it?" The accusation landed with a dull thud. Sandra's face hardened, her cheeks turning a splotchy red. "You watch your mouth, young man. You're not getting on this flight because of a security flag. That's it. That's all. Now, step aside. You're holding up my boarding process." She turned from them and pressed the microphone button. "Ascent Airlines is pleased to announce the commencement of boarding for Flight 880 to Austin. We now invite our first-class passengers, as well as our Platinum Ascent members, to board at this time." The line moved, the barrier opened, and Jordan and James Sullivan were left standing on the wrong side of the gate, invisible, accused, and utterly powerless. "She can't do this," James whispered, his voice shaking with fury. "She's doing it, man," Jordan replied, his mind racing. He was already calculating. The next flight, the call to the internship coordinator, the domino effect of this one, arbitrary act of power. "No," James said, his eyes hardening. "She can't." He pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumbs flying across the screen. "What are you doing?" Jordan asked, a note of panic in his voice. "Don't post this, James. It'll just make it worse." "I'm not posting anything," James said, his finger hovering over a contact. The name was simple. Dad. "James, don't," Jordan hissed. "He's in the middle of closing the Kestrel deal. It's a $2 billion acquisition. He'll kill us." "He'll kill us more if we miss this internship," James shot back. He looked at Sandra, who was now scanning the pass of a smiling blonde woman, waving her through with a, "Have a wonderful flight, Mum." The hypocrisy was a physical slap. James hit the call button. The boarding process continued, a picture of placid efficiency that was a stark, brutal contrast to the storm brewing at the podium. Each beep of a successful scan was like a tiny hammer blow to the twins' chances. First class was through. The Platinum members were trickling past, casting curious, pitying or annoyed glances at the two young men standing sentinel by the customer service desk. "Sir, I've already told you," Sandra said, her back to them as she directed a family with a stroller. "You need to go to the main ticketing counter downstairs and get this sorted out. You're not getting on this plane." "And I'm telling you," James said, his phone pressed to his ear, "that you're making a massive mistake." The call was ringing. Once, twice. Jordan tried a different tack. Logic. De-escalation. "Ma'am, Sandra, look, I understand. Security is important, But there has to be a way to verify us. Can't you call a supervisor? Can't we call the booking agent? Her name is Maria. She works for Apex Holdings. I can give you her direct line." Sandra finally turned to face them, her expression one of profound, weary annoyance. "Apex Holdings? Oh, I'm sure. And I suppose you're a prince, too?" She let out a short, barking laugh. "I've been at this job 20 years, son. I've heard every story. My dad's a pilot. My uncle's on the board. I'm a celebrity. It never works. We're not telling you a story." Jordan's composure was cracking. The planner was losing his plan. "We're just trying to get to Austin. We have internships. We can show you the offer letters." "I don't want to see your letters," Sandra said. "The only thing I want to see is you two walking away from my gate." She pointed a finger. Now, it was at that moment a new player arrived. Mark Jenkins. He was a supervisor of customer experience, which meant he wore a slightly better-fitting suit than the gate agents and carried an air of harried, ineffectual authority. He was summoned by a small, red blinking light on Sandra's console. "What's the problem here, Sandra?" Mark said, not looking at the twins, but at his tablet. "These two," Sandra said, jerking her chin at them, "are refusing to accept a boarding denial. Their tickets were flagged for fraud verification. They don't have the purchasing card. They're becoming disruptive, and," she dropped her voice, "they're filming me." Jordan's phone was in his hand, but he wasn't filming. He was trying to find the Apex corporate directory. But the accusation was enough. Mark looked up, his eyes immediately hostile. "Sir, you need to stop filming. It's against Port Authority policy to film security procedures." "I'm not filming," Jordan protested. "And this isn't a security procedure. It's discrimination." The D word. Mark winced. This was now a headache. "Sir, let's calm down," Mark said, adopting the smooth, placating tone that was the opposite of helpful. "Sandra is one of our best agents. If she says there's a flag, there's a flag. It's for everyone's safety." "How is this for anyone's safety?" James demanded. His call had gone to voicemail. He was furious. "You're accusing us of fraud because we're black. That's what this is." "Now, nobody said that," Mark said, holding up his hands. "This is a simple ticketing issue. We'd be happy to rebook you, though, with a fraud flag on the ticket, we'd have to cancel the reservation entirely. You'd need to purchase new, last-minute fares." The trap was sprung. The twins stared at him. Cancel their fully paid reservation and force them to buy new tickets at walk-up, last-minute prices, which would cost thousands. It was extortion, gift-wrapped in corporate policy. That's insane," Jordan stammered. "That's the policy," Sandra said, a small, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She turned back to the gate. "We are now boarding Zone 2. All passengers in Zone 2. The injustice of it was suffocating. They were trapped. They were being publicly humiliated, shaken down, and dismissed. The other passengers, their future flight mates, watched the drama with the detached interest of people watching a reality TV show. A few were filming now, their phones held low. The twins were the entertainment. "That's it," James said. He'd just gotten a text. "Dad, in a meeting." "What's wrong?" James's fingers flew. "At EWR, Gate C-124, Ascent Airlines, Agent Sandra Prescott. She's denying us boarding. Says our tickets are fraud. Calling us liars. Flight 880 to Austin. They are closing the door." He sent it. Jordan watched his brother. The fire in James's eyes was now a controlled burn. He'd passed the problem up the chain. "What are you doing?" Mark demanded, seeing the furious texting. "Who are you contacting?" "My father," James said, his voice suddenly calm. He looked directly at Mark. "You wanted us to validate who we are." Well, you're about to get your validation. Mark and Sandra exchanged a look. It was a mix of annoyance and, for the first time, a tiny flicker of uncertainty. The twins' demeanor had changed. The panic was gone, replaced by a cold, unsettling confidence. "They're boarding the last zone, Mark," Sandra said, gesturing to the line. "We need to close this flight." "Right," Mark said, puffing out his chest. He turned to the twins. "Look, kids, the show's over. Your dad, whoever he is, can't help you. This is a federal security matter now. You can either leave the gate area on your own, or I can call Port Authority police and have you escorted out. Your choice." He was calling their bluff. He was so sure of his power, of his position on this tiny patch of corporate-owned carpet. Jordan felt a surge of despair. Police? An arrest? That would definitely cost them their internship. "James," Jordan said, grabbing his brother's arm. "Let's just go. We'll figure it out." "No," James said, his eyes locked on his phone. He didn't move. "Wait. Waiting for what?" Sandra laughed. "For your CEO dad to swoop in? This isn't a movie." The phone in James's hand buzzed. Not a text, a call. "Dad." James answered it. He didn't say hello. He just listened. Jordan watched as the blood drained from his brother's face, replaced by a look of sheer awe. "Yes, Dad," James said, his voice quiet. "Yes, I am. Okay. Her name is Sandra Prescott. The supervisor is Mark Jenkins." Mark and Sandra froze. The sound of their names being spoken into that phone, with that level of gravity, was different. "James," Mark said, his voice losing its corporate smoothness. "Who are you talking to?" James held up a single finger, silencing him. "Okay, Dad. I'm putting you on speaker." He fumbled with the button. A new voice filled the air of Gate C-124. It was not loud, it was not angry, it was cold, precise, and absolutely terrifying. It was the voice of a man who doesn't ask, but tells. "This is Marcus Sullivan." The Kestrel Capital boardroom, on the 88th floor of 1 Vanderbilt in Manhattan, was silent, save for the whisper of the air filtration system. It was a room designed to intimidate. A single slab of 40-foot-long black marble for a table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a miniature, toy-like New York City, and, at the head of it all, Marcus Sullivan. Marcus was a man who existed in a state of perpetual, controlled pressure. As the founder and CEO of Apex Holdings, a private equity Goliath with a $300 billion portfolio, he didn't just move markets, he was the market. He was currently in the final, agonizing stage of a $2 billion hostile takeover of Kestrel Capital, a rival firm. The lawyers on the other side of the table were sweating. Marcus was not. His phone, a custom-built encrypted device, was set face down on the marble. It never made a sound, but his personal iPhone, which he kept for his sons, was on silent vibrate in his pocket. He felt the insistent, panicked buzzes. A text. He ignored it. It buzzed again. A call. From James. He ignored that too. James was the impulsive one. It was probably about a girl or a credit card charge. Then, a text. He discreetly glanced under the table. At EWR, Gate C-124, Ascent Airlines, Agent Sandra Prescott. She's denying us boarding. Says our tickets are fraud. Calling us liars. Marcus Sullivan's blood didn't run cold. It didn't boil. It did something far more dangerous. It focused. The lawyers across from him were droning on about shareholder value and poison pills. Marcus held up a single manicured hand. The room fell utterly silent. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice a baritone calm, "you have 5 minutes to find an additional 10% for my shareholders. I'm stepping out to take a call regarding a personnel matter." He didn't wait for a reply. He stood, a 6'3" monolith of bespoke tailoring, and walked into his private, soundproofed office. He hit the callback button for James. The chaos that poured through the phone's speaker was an assault. "Last chance, or I'm calling the police." "Can't believe this is happening." "James," Marcus said. His voice cut through the noise, and his son's frantic replies came tumbling out. "Dad, they won't let us on. They're calling us frauds. They're calling the cops on us. We're at the gate. They're closing the door." Marcus closed his eyes for 1 second. He pictured his sons, 18, talented, ambitious, and in this moment, just 2 young black kids in an airport being harassed by people on a power trip. He'd given them everything, the education, the clothes, the confidence, but he couldn't give them a new skin. He couldn't protect them from a world that would see their clothes and their color before their character. The anger he felt was a pure, white-hot, industrial-grade fuel. But he didn't raise his voice. He never raised his voice. "James," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I need you to listen to me. I need you to be calm. Are you calm?" "I'm trying, Dad, but—" "Be calm, now. Your panic is what they want. It's their justification." Okay. I'm calm. Good. What is the agent's name?" "Sandra Prescott. Her supervisor is Mark Jenkins." "Airline?" "Ascent. Flight 880 to Austin." "Good. Now, I want you to do something. I want you to put me on speakerphone, right in front of her." "What?" "Dad, she's threatening to call the cops." "She will not call the cops, James. Put me on speaker." He heard the fumbling, the protest, and then the sudden, amplified air of the gate. "Who are you talking to?" That was Mark Jenkins, the supervisor, the company man. "My father." That was James. Good. His voice was steady, and then Marcus spoke. "This is Marcus Sullivan." A beat of silence. "Sir, I don't care who you are." A woman's voice. "Sandra. This is a secure area. You can't—" "Sandra Prescott," Marcus interjected. He spoke her name like a judge passing sentence. "You are currently employed as a lead gate agent for Ascent Airlines, a subsidiary of the Ascent Air Group. You have been with the company for 21 years. Your supervisor, Mark Jenkins, has been in his role for 18 months, following a lateral transfer from the baggage handling department in Denver." The silence on the other end was absolute. Even James and Jordan were stunned. How? How do you know that?" That was Mark. His voice was a squeak. Marcus, of course, hadn't known any of that. Not 10 seconds ago. But while James was talking, Marcus had been on his desktop. His other hand was flying across a keyboard, logged into the Apex terminal, which had access to data streams the public couldn't even dream of. Apex Holdings didn't own Ascent Air Group, but it did own a 30% stake in the holding company that financed their fleet. He had their entire C-suite on speed dial. He had their employee database at his fingertips. "What I know, Mr. Jenkins," Marcus said, his voice a silken threat, "is that my sons, Jordan and James Sullivan, are confirmed, paid and ticketed passengers on your flight. I know that their tickets were purchased on the Apex Holdings corporate Amex, which has a credit line that could buy this entire terminal, and I know that you and Ms. Prescott have chosen to detain them under a false pretense, which you have now escalated to a public accusation of fraud." "Sir, that's a mischaracterization," Mark stammered. "We have a flag." "You have a problem," Marcus said. "I am at this very moment on the phone with my general counsel, and I am 1 click away from calling Robert Decker." Robert Bob Decker was the CIO of Ascent Air Group. He was a man Marcus had golfed with, a man who had, on 2 separate occasions, asked Marcus for a 9-figure loan to avoid a liquidity crisis. "You are accusing my sons of fraud," Marcus continued, the Kestrel lawyers completely forgotten. "You have threatened them. You have humiliated them. This is not a ticketing issue, Ms. Prescott. This is a clear-cut case of racial profiling, and you have done it on behalf of Ascent Airlines. The liability you have just created, it's breathtaking." Sandra's voice, when it came, was a reedy, terrified whisper. "Sir, I was just following policy." "This is not policy," Marcus thundered, the cold calm finally breaking. "This is prejudice. Now you have exactly one option. You will apologize to my sons. You will print their boarding passes, and you will personally escort them onto that aircraft. Is that understood?" There was a frantic, scuffling sound. "Mark," Sandra whispered. "Mark, what do we do?" Mark was silent. He was staring at the twins, at the phone in James's hand, as if it were a bomb. James, feeling the tide turn so fast it was giving him whiplash, couldn't help himself. He looked at Sandra, who was pale and trembling, and asked, "So, are you going to let us on?" But before Sandra could answer, something else happened. A new sound cut through the gate, a high-low siren tone, not from a police officer, but from the airport's own internal PA system. It was a sound no passenger ever wants to hear. Bwoop! 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 On Sandra's monitor, and on the main flight display boards all across Terminal C, the on-time and boarding messages vanished. They were replaced by two words, flashing in stark, urgent red. Ground stop. All terminals. Code red. Every passenger in the terminal stopped. Every agent froze. The robotic voice of the PA confirmed it. "Attention! A security alert is in effect. All flight operations at Newark Liberty International Airport are now suspended. All boarding is to cease. All aircraft are to hold at the gate." The airport, a second ago a river of humanity, was frozen in an instant. The silence at gate C-124 was absolute, a vacuum where the oral chaos of an airport used to be. The only sound was the distant, echoing bwoop of the alarm and the metallic voice on the PA. Every eye in the gate area, the passengers still in the lounge, the family in the stroller, Mark, Sandra, and the twins, was locked on the massive display board, flashing "Ground Stop." And then, as one, every eye swiveled to the phone in James's hand, the phone from which the voice of Marcus Sullivan had just been dictating terms, the phone that had just, in their minds, brought the full, terrifying power of a vengeful god down on Ascent Airlines. Sandra Prescott's hand went to her mouth. Her face, which had been pale, was now a ghostly, bloodless white. She looked at the twins, not with anger, but with a primal, naked fear. James, his heart hammering against his ribs, looked at the phone, then at his brother. Jordan's eyes were wide, his mouth slightly open. He, the pragmatist, the planner, was trying to compute the variables. It was impossible. No one man could do this. Could he? Into this thick, terrified silence, James whispered the only thing he could think of. "Dad, what did you do?" Back in the soundproofed office on the 88th floor, Marcus Sullivan was just as surprised as anyone. He was still connected, had heard the alarm, had heard his son's question, and on his Bloomberg terminal, a red alert had just flashed across the screen. Hey, issues full ground. Stop EWR, all terminals. Security threat. Marcus, a man who had built an empire on seeing patterns, saw the coincidence in a nanosecond. He saw the accidental, terrifying correlation his son had just drawn. And he understood, in that same instant, that a coincidence, when wielded properly, is a more powerful weapon than the truth. He didn't hesitate. He didn't correct. He played the hand he was dealt. His voice, cold and powerful, filled the gate area once more. "I told you it was handled, James." He let the words hang, a death sentence. "Now," Marcus continued, "put the supervisor, Mr. Jenkins, on the phone. I believe he and I need to discuss how we resolve this, before I'm forced to take further action." James, moving like a sleepwalker, held the phone out to Mark. Mark Jenkins looked at the phone as if it were a live cobra. He took a half-step back. "Take the phone, Mark," Sandra whispered, her voice trembling. "Please. Just take it." Mark's hand was shaking. He wiped his sweaty palm on his polyester suit pants and took the phone. "Hello, Mr. Sullivan?" Mark stammered. "Mr. Jenkins." Marcus's voice boomed from the small speaker. "You have a choice. This airport-wide security alert, as it turns out, is a separate, and I'm sure very stressful, issue for your operations team. It's a bomb threat at Terminal A, I'm hearing. Such a mess." Marcus was guessing. He was right. The news was just hitting the internal FAA feeds. By stating it, he sounded omniscient. "This temporary stop," Marcus continued, "gives you a very convenient window. When this alert is lifted, in, let's say, 20 minutes, my sons will be on that plane. You will find their seats. You will put them in first class as a gesture of apology for the distress you and Ms. Prescott have caused." "Sir, first class is full," Mark squeaked. "Then you will unfill it, Mr. Jenkins. You will find 2 passengers, perhaps 2 Ascent employees flying on a pass, and you will explain to them that a corporate priority has arisen. Or you will explain it to Robert Decker after I have you fired. Your call. Am I clear?" "Crystal," Mark whispered. "Good. And Ms. Prescott, she is to have no further interaction with my sons. She is to be reassigned immediately. My sons will be handled by a station manager, or by you, personally." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." "One more thing," Marcus said. His voice was so quiet, it was almost gentle, which was infinitely more terrifying. "My sons are going to Austin for an internship. They are brilliant, they are good, and they have worked their entire lives for this. You tried to take that from them, over a policy. Remember this moment, Mr. Jenkins. Remember what it feels like to have your whole career in the balance because of someone else's whim. Now, put my son back on." Mark, shaking, handed the phone back to James. "Dad?" James said, his voice full of a new, dangerous emotion. "Worship." "It's done, son," Marcus said. "A station manager named Cynthia Barrows is on her way. She's the head of East Coast operations. She will take care of you. I've sent her your picture. Do not talk to Prescott or Jenkins. Only her. Now I have to go. I have a $2 billion deal to close." The line clicked. Marcus Sullivan was gone. The gate was silent for another 10 seconds. The ground stop was still flashing. Then, as if from a dream, a woman came sprinting down the concourse, high heels clacking, her Ascent Airlines scarf flying behind her like a banner. She was in a full run. "Mark! Sandra!" she yelled, out of breath. "What in God's name did you do? My phone is... I just got off with Bob Decker. He was shouting." This was Cynthia Barrows. She was not a supervisor. She was a boss. She spotted the twins, standing next to the podium, looking shell-shocked. She instantly put the pieces together. The call from the CEO, the 2 young black men, the fraud accusation she'd been briefed on in one frantic sentence, and the airport-wide ground stop that had everyone on edge. Like Sandra and Mark, she connected the wrong dots. She didn't think Marcus Sullivan had caused the ground stop, but she assumed he was powerful enough to know about it, and to use the resulting chaos to his advantage. He was a chess player, and her people were checkers. She plastered on a bright, terrified smile and walked straight to Jordan and James. "Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Sullivan, I'm Cynthia Barrows. I'm the station manager. I am so incredibly, deeply sorry for the misunderstanding here. There seems to have been a training failure on our part." She shot a look of pure venom at Sandra and Mark. "Sandra, Mark, you're to report to my office. Now, hand over your badges." Sandra looked like she might faint. "Cynthia, I was just—" Now Sandra. The two agents, their faces ashen, unclipped their airport IDs and handed them over. They were, in effect, fired, or at least suspended, pending an investigation that was already concluded. They turned without a word and walked away from the gate, a walk of shame past the staring passengers. "Right," Cynthia said, turning back to the twins, her smile firmly in place. "Gentlemen, I have your new boarding passes. Seats 1A and 1C, first class. The ground stop appears to be lifting. It was a false alarm, thank goodness. We'll be boarding you first, before anyone else. Can I get you anything? A drink? A voucher? Several vouchers?" Jordan and James were speechless. They, who 10 minutes ago were frauds, were now Mr. Sullivan. They, who were being threatened with police, were now being offered to the world. James found his voice first. He looked at Cynthia, and for the first time, he used the tone he'd only ever heard his father use. "We're fine," he said, taking the boarding passes. "Just make sure the plane doesn't leave without us." Cynthia let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, sir, believe me, this plane isn't going anywhere until you are comfortably in your seats." As they were personally escorted down the jet bridge, ahead of first class, ahead of everyone, James glanced back. The entire gate of passengers was staring at them, not with annoyance anymore, but with a new kind of respect, a respect born of fear. They didn't just see two kids in hoodies. They saw power, and as James settled into the plush, oversized leather seat of 1A, a glass of pre-departure orange juice already in his hand, he thought, "This is what it feels like. This is who we are." The legend was born, and it was a beautiful, powerful lie. The flight to Austin was a 3-hour dream. The twins were in a bubble of rarefied air, cushioned by the plush leather of seats that cost more than Sandra Prescott's monthly salary. The flight attendants, clearly briefed by a terrified Cynthia Barrows, treated them with a reverence usually reserved for visiting royalty or rock stars. "Mr. Sullivan, can I get you another artisanal cheese plate? Mr. Sullivan, more sparkling water? Or perhaps something stronger?" Jordan, the pragmatist, was deeply uncomfortable. He sipped his water and stared out the window, watching the patchwork of America scroll by beneath them. He'd seen his father's power before, but always at a distance. A new car, a different school, a problem that went away. He had never seen it deployed like a surgical strike. He felt a mix of gratitude, awe, and a creeping, acidic guilt. He thought of Sandra Prescott's face, her collapse from petty tyrant to broken employee. He thought of Mark Jenkins, a man who was just a cog, suddenly ground up by the gears. James, on the other hand, was reborn. He was in his element. He'd never felt more like his father's son. He didn't just accept the service, he inhabited it. He reclined his seat to its full flat bed position. He sampled the cheese plate. He engaged in witty banter with the flight attendant, who laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. He was performing the role of Mr. Sullivan, and he found it fit him perfectly. "Can you believe that?" James murmured to Jordan as he swirled a glass of complimentary ginger ale. That woman, Sandra, the look on her face. "I'm trying not to think about it," Jordan said quietly. "Why not? It's all I can think about. She tried to end us, man. She looked at us, saw whatever she saw, and decided we didn't deserve to be on that plane. She deserved what she got. Did she? Jordan said. She's probably fired. Mark, too, just gone. Because Dad made a call. Good, James said, his voice hard. They picked the wrong 2 kids to mess with. They learned today. You don't mess with a Sullivan. Jordan looked at his brother. The fire he'd always had was different now. It was colder, more arrogant. Dad didn't actually stop the airport, you know, Jordan felt compelled to say. It was a coincidence, a bomb threat at Terminal A. And Dad knew it, James said with a shrug. He knew it before anyone else. He used it. That's what power is, Jordan. It's not about causing the thunderstorm. It's about knowing it's coming and convincing everyone you're the one holding the lightning, and he did it for us. James leaned back, a satisfied smile on his face. Things are going to be different now. We're different. Jordan looked away, unconvinced, but he couldn't deny the truth of that. They were different. The ground beneath them had shifted. The invisible shield of their father's influence was no longer invisible. It was a weapon. And James was already learning how to wield it. They landed in Austin to a text from their father. Hope the rest of the flight was pleasant. Cynthia Barrows has arranged a car. Focus on your work. Make me proud. A black SUV was waiting, as promised. The internship at Quantum Leap AI started the next day, and the legend, as legends do, began to grow. It started with the other interns. At a get-to-know-you happy hour, a privileged kid from Stanford, whose father was a mere vice president at a rival bank, was complaining. My flight from SFO was delayed, he whined. Some mechanical issue. Sat on the tarmac for 2 hours. So annoying. James, who had been listening with a bored expression, laughed. Amateurs, he said. My flight had a problem too. Oh yeah? What happened? This gate agent, James said, leaning in, tried to deny us boarding. Racist old lady. So, my brother and we had to make a call. To who? The Stanford kid asked. To our dad, James said, taking a sip of his drink. So he shut down the airport. What? Shut. It. Down. Full ground stop. All terminals. Newark. James snapped his fingers. Like that. Until the CEO of the airline came down and personally apologized. The Stanford kid's jaw dropped. Jordan, who was standing nearby, cringed. James, it wasn't exactly like that. It was exactly like that, James said, staring his brother down. The message was clear. Don't ruin this. The story spread through the intern pool like wildfire. It was too good, too cinematic, too powerful not to be true. The Sullivan twins, the gatekeeper, the phone call, the ground stop. Suddenly, Jordan and James weren't just 2 more brilliant interns. They were the interns, the ones with connections, the ones you didn't, under any circumstances, want to cross. Project leads who were gruff with other interns were deferential to them. When James suggested a better, read easier, coding path, the team leader who knew better agreed. When they were 20 minutes late, no one marked them down. James, in particular, thrived. He started calling himself JS. He'd walk into meetings with a confidence that went beyond preparation. He'd suggest solutions, and if they were ignored, he'd drop a casual, you know, my dad had a similar problem with a portfolio company. He just replaced the entire management team. Fixed it right up. It was a threat, veiled in an anecdote, and it worked. Jordan watched it all with a growing sense of dread. He was still the pragmatist. He was working hard, head down, trying to earn his place. But he was benefiting from the legend too. The Sullivans were a package deal. His code was reviewed faster. His ideas were praised more. The JS&JS duo, as they were known, were fast-tracked, put on the high-profile Odyssey AI project. The power was a drug. James was an addict. Jordan was a contact high. They were untouchable. They were the kings of the summer, their path cleared by a story so powerful no one dared to question it. They had confused a coincidence for a coronation, and in their hubris they never saw the one person who was, at that very moment, starting to pull at the thread that would unravel it all. 3 months into their internship, 500 miles away, a journalist named Rebecca Flint was sipping stale coffee and scrolling through a little-known FAA incident log forum. She was working on a boring, data-driven story about airport security inefficiencies. And then she found a post. Subject: EWR ground stop, 518, weirdest ever user, fly gay 88. Was at EWR gate C124 for the ATX flight. Ground stop happens, bomb threat, whatever. But I swear to God, just before it, these 2 kids, brothers I think, were getting into it with the gate agent. She was denying them. They make one call to their dad. Next thing you know, bam, airport's frozen. Agent looked like she saw a ghost. They got walked onto the plane, first class. Craziness. Who are these people? Rebecca Flint leaned in. She highlighted the post. Who are these people? She opened a new file. EWR Sullivan.incident. The hunt had begun. Rebecca Flint was not a flashy reporter. She didn't work for cable news. She worked for ProPublica, the non-profit investigative unit that specialized in long, deeply researched, and utterly devastating takedowns of the powerful and corrupt. Her beat was the intersection of money, power, and logistics. She was, in short, the last person on earth Marcus Sullivan would ever want digging into his family's business. The forum post was a curiosity, but it was the timing that hooked her. She pulled the official FAA logs for the EWR ground stop on May 18th. 2:14 p.m., code red, threat logged at Terminal A baggage. Source, anonymous tip. 2:15 p.m., FAA EWR GND stop issued. 2:35 p.m., all clear, threat deemed non-credible. 2:42 p.m., GND stop lifted. A 27-minute event, annoying but routine. Then she cross-referenced the flight. Ascent 880 to Austin, scheduled departure, 2:30 p.m. Actual departure, 3:10 p.m. She pulled the passenger manifest, a public but tedious document to acquire. She scrolled. Sullivan, James, Sullivan, Jordan. Then she did what she did best. She started digging into Sullivan. It didn't take long to connect the name to Apex Holdings, to Marcus Sullivan. "Well, hello, Mr. Sullivan," she murmured to her empty apartment. Her first calls were to Ascent Airlines. Their PR department gave her the standard. "We do not comment on individual passenger matters, but we are committed to the safety and security of all." Rebecca was bored. "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm also looking into the employment records of a Sandra Prescott and a Mark Jenkins, formerly of your EWR station. Can you confirm the dates they were separated from the company? Was it, by any chance, May 18th? The phone on the other end went very quiet. I will have to get back to you." Rebecca smiled. "Please do." She found Sandra Prescott. It took a week. The woman was no longer in aviation. She was working as a cashier at a Home Depot in suburban New Jersey. Rebecca found her on her lunch break, sitting in her car. At first, Sandra was terrified. I can't talk about that. I signed an NDA. They gave me a severance, but I had to sign." "An NDA?" Rebecca's eyebrows shot up. "Airlines don't give NDAs to gate agents they fire, unless they were firing you to cover something up." "I was a good agent," Sandra burst out, the injustice of months, the humiliation, all coming to the surface. 21 years, and they threw me away for those boys. What happened, Sandra? Tell me. And Sandra told her. She told her everything. The fraud flag, which, she admitted, was a judgment call. The attitude, the phone call, the voice of the father, and the ground stop. He did it, you know, Sandra whispered, her eyes wide. That father. He shut the whole airport down to teach me a lesson. Sandra, Rebecca said gently. The ground stop was a bomb threat at Terminal A. It was all over the news. That's not true, Sandra said, but the certainty in her voice was gone. That's just what they said. Who was the station manager? Cynthia Barrows. Yeah, Sandra said, her voice bitter. Cynthia. She's the one who took my badge. Cynthia Barrows was smarter. She was still employed, now promoted to a regional director role. When Rebecca called her office line, she was patched through to Ascent's legal department. Ms. Flint, this is regarding the Sullivan matter, the lawyer said. Ascent Airlines considers this incident resolved. We can confirm that a customer service issue occurred, it was handled internally, and all parties were satisfied. Were all parties satisfied? Rebecca asked. Was Sandra Prescott satisfied? We have no further comment. Click. Rebecca was getting the picture. A workplace dispute, a racial profiling allegation, a power play from a high-stakes father, and an epic, world-class coincidence. Now she needed the other side. The Austin side? She found the Quantum Leap AI intern roster. Sullivan, James. Sullivan, Jordan. Project, Odyssey. She started making calls to other interns on the project. Oh, the Sullivan twins, one intern told her, on condition of anonymity. Yeah, everyone knows them. Their dad is like a kingmaker. You heard the story, right? How they shut down Newark Airport? Tell me, Rebecca said. And he did. The story was now mythic. In this version, Marcus Sullivan hadn't just called the CEO, he'd called the FAA, he'd called the governor, he'd landed a helicopter on the tarmac. They're insufferable, the intern complained, especially James. He acts like he owns the place. He bullies the project leads. He takes credit for code he didn't write. But no one can touch him. We're all terrified of ending up like that gate agent. Rebecca had her story. It wasn't just about an airport. It was about the consequences of power, the rot that grows from a lie. She made one last call to the office of Marcus Sullivan. His assistant, a woman who sounded like a pleasant, highly trained robot, was polite. Mr. Sullivan is in travel. May I take a message? Yes, Rebecca said. My name is Rebecca Flint, with ProPublica. I'm doing a story on the May 18th incident at Newark, Gate C124, involving his sons, Ascent Airlines, and a ground stop order. I have on-record comment from Ms. Sandra Prescott. I have confirmation of the twins' behavior at Quantum Leap. I'm running the story in 48 hours. If Mr. Sullivan wants to provide his version of events, my line is open. She left her number and hung up. 2,000 miles away, in the Quantum Leap AI Odyssey project room, James Sullivan was berating a senior programmer. This entire data model is inefficient, James said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. It's sloppy. My father would never... James, Jordan said, walking over. That's enough, man. Dr. Aris designed this. And Dr. Aris is wrong, James said. Dr. Aris, a quiet man with a PhD from MIT, just sighed and looked at his screen. James's phone rang. It was his father. Dad, what's up? Just cleaning up a mess here at the... Be silent. The voice was not the dad voice. It was the Marcus Sullivan voice, the one from the gate. Get Jordan, go to a private room. Now. What? Dad, what's... Now, James. The twins hustled into a small, glass-walled conference room. What's going on? Jordan said, panicked. James put the phone on speaker. We're here, Dad. What's wrong? A reporter, Marcus said, his voice tight with a fury James had never heard. A reporter named Rebecca Flint, ProPublica. She knows everything. She knows about Sandra. She knows about the ground stop. And, his voice dropped, she knows about your behavior at the internship. James's bravado evaporated. My behavior? Telling people I shut down an airport? Telling people I shut down an airport, James? You arrogant, foolish boy. You took a lie, a coincidence, and you built a fantasy on it. You used my name to bully people? Dad, it was just a story. It's a story that is about to cost me, Marcus snarled. The Kestrel deal fell apart, you know. They called me volatile, unpredictable. That call to you, cost this company billions, and I was willing to eat it, for you. But this hubris, a ProPublica article, this isn't just a story, this is a problem. What's going to happen? Jordan asked, his voice shaking. The story is running in 48 hours, Marcus said. It's called The Sullivan Coincidence. It paints you as arrogant, spoiled fools. It paints me as an overbearing bully, and it paints Sandra Prescott as a victim. But she wasn't, James cried. She profiled us. It doesn't matter what she was, Marcus said. It matters what the story is. And the story is that 2 privileged black kids used their father's name to crush a working-class white woman, and then spent their summer bragging about a lie. How does that look for us, James? How does that look for me? The twins were silent. The beautiful lie had turned, suddenly, into an ugly, gaping wound. What do we do? Jordan whispered. You? Marcus's voice was ice. You do nothing. You've done enough. You're to pack your bags. A car will be outside your apartment in 1 hour. You are leaving Austin. The internship is over. Over? James was shocked. But Project Odyssey. Project Odyssey is over for you. I'm calling the CEO of Quantum Leap myself. I'm pulling you out. I'm citing a family emergency. It's the only way to get ahead of this. You will come home. You will not talk to the press. You will not talk to anyone. The legend of the Sullivan twins is over. The line went dead. James stared at the phone. Jordan sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Through the glass walls they could see the other interns, the programmers, Dr. Aris, all staring at them. The Kings were, quite suddenly, in exile. The ProPublica article, The Sullivan Coincidence, went viral. It was a devastating, complex narrative, with no heroes, and the karma was not a lightning bolt, but a slow, crushing reality. Sandra Prescott, caught between being a folk hero and a Karen, became unemployable. Mark Jenkins ended up managing a self-storage facility. Ascent Airlines was hit with lawsuits from both sides, Sandra and a civil rights group, tanking their stock. Marcus Sullivan's board was furious. The lie made him a liability, weakening his power. But the hardest karma hit the twins. They flew home coach, were pulled from college, and put to work. James was sent to the Apex mailroom on minimum wage. Jordan was assigned to the non-profit foundation. Their father stripped them of their privilege, forcing them to learn, for the first time, what it meant to actually build a name. The legend was dead. And that's where the story really begins. Not at the gate, but in the mailroom. Not with a phone call, but with the quiet sound of opening an envelope for a grant application. The story of the Sullivan twins isn't just about an airport. It's about what happens when a small lie, powered by a big coincidence, gets mistaken for the truth. It's about karma. Not the instant, Hollywood kind, but the slow, grinding, real-life kind that catches up to everyone: the agent, the supervisor, the CEO, and the sons. What do you think? Who was really to blame? Was Sandra the cause, or was she just the first casualty? This is the kind of story we love to unravel. If you want more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines, the moments where power, privilege, and reality collide, then like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so you never miss a story. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done if you were Jordan?